All right, everyone, welcome back from morning tea. We've still got a bunch of great sessions to go today. It's very exciting. If you're still coming in, come in, grab a seat. Next up, we're going to be hearing from Jane Tweedy. Jane is a business coach and trainer with extensive experience in helping businesses enhance their communication and client engagement. As a professional certified coach and passionate advocate for whole brain thinking, Jane brings a unique perspective to improving sales and service delivery. And she's going to tell us a bit more about that. So let's thank Jane.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let me swap this over for you. And it should be all good to go.
Yay!
Thanks, Jane.
We're in the right place. Right. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today and to pay my respect to their elders past and present. Disclaimer, the information I'm giving today may or may not apply to you. I am going to reference a tool today called the HBDI profile. You do not need to buy this profile to have the benefits of this session today, but it is something that would enhance your ability to use and understand what I'm talking about today. But I'm giving you a lot of practical tips that you can take away and use today. So don't worry about not having an HBDI profile. So please don't share my material. You can put the odd thing up in socials and that, but it does contain both my IP and things from Herman International. So they're the providers of the HBDI profile. So what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about whole brain thinking. What is it and why do you need to give a damn about it? And you do. Identify what your thinking preferences might be, and I might get a little show of hands here to see what you think you are. We're going to look at cues to identify whole brain thinking in other people, because this is how we interact better with them when we understand them. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of where communication failed miserably because people think differently. We're going to apply whole brain thinking into your communication. I'm going to show you how to do that, and very practical sales and service tips, particularly aimed at website designers, but for those of you that aren't, you just adjust what I'm talking about today for your industry. And then we're going to talk about applying it to your business more broadly and any residual Q&A at the end. So my name is Jane Tweedy. I am an award-winning small business owner. I won that award on the fast side last weekend. Woohoo, go me. Thank you. I'm also a Business Connect advisor with the New South Wales government. So I've worked with over 2,000 businesses one-on-one. That's a lot of intel and a lot of insight into what's going on out there in small business land. But I also work as an executive coach with Coach Hub, and I've had clients with up to 3,500 staff. So I deal from one extreme to the other, so I've had a lot of broad range of experience. So, and I'm also, as you see on the right there, a Herman certified practitioner. That means I'm able to do HBDI profiles and teach about whole brain thinking. So what is whole brain thinking? The little picture on the side might give you a little bit of a clue. Basically what it is saying we think in 4 separate spaces, 4 separate areas of our brain. Now I'm going to mention these a few times because I want you later on to pick the 2 that you most resonate with, or if there's only one, pick the one. So we have the A, the blue, that's logical, analytical, fact-based, quantitative. We also have B, the green, which is organised, sequential, planned and detailed. So people that are both A and B, what we typically call left-brained, just bear in mind it's not an actual physical left part of your brain, right? It's more an arbitrary thing. But if you're left-brained, you are typically things like engineers, auditors, accountants, and probably a lot of website people fit into this place. On the right side, we have the C, the red, which is things like interpersonal, feeling, kinesthetic, and emotional. And on the top, we have the D, the holistic, intuitive, integrating, and synthesizing. D is associated a lot with entrepreneurs. So I am A and D. So that's quite an intellectual space. If we're down this bottom, we're more instinctive. So there's left and right and up and down, and there's a whole bunch of things. But why does this matter? This is why it matters. What you believe, what you grew up with, makes what you think, okay? So if you were a child and you were punished every time you did something wrong, you're going to believe, I need to be a perfectionist or I'm going to get tortured, right? That's your belief that you grow up with. So your thinking is going to be all around believing you need to be perfect. So what you think leads to what you feel, and that leads to what you do, the actions that you take. So you might go, and I was speaking to someone just before, and she said, I don't like speaking to people on the phone. That is actually a trait caused about by the way that you think often. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's environmental. Because if I'm in meetings all day, I don't want people calling me because I'm not going to be able to answer their call. Okay? So sometimes it's environmental, but a lot of the times it links to how we think. So think, feel, do. So if we can change the way that we think, or at least adapt our thinking in certain situations, that can change the way that we feel, and it can change what we do. And this is incredibly powerful. So this talk came about, though, because I had a client who is a web designer who was working with another of my clients who was a hairdresser. The web designer sacked the client. And these were both very nice people and all that. They should have been able to get together and work together. They didn't work well because they had very different ways of working because of their thinking. So the web designer, no upfront meetings at all. In fact, no meetings at all. And when I say no meetings, not just in person, but not even a Zoom meeting. Nothing, okay? 100% email. And if the person asks questions, well, they don't trust me. That's not good. The client preferences. They want to see who they're dealing with. Is she even in Australia? Like, yeah, I've met with her. I know her. She is, I can assure you. She wants at least one online meeting just to build that bit of rapport. She wants to meet to discuss issues because it's easier to talk through something when you can kind of show things and demo things and stuff. And she questions to understand. So the thing is here, what were they both wanting? A website that worked for the client. What didn't happen? A website that worked for the client. Because they're on two separate pages and they couldn't work together and neither of them were willing to budge. So that is not good. So whole brain thinking came about by a gentleman by the name of Ned Herman who worked at L&D as a learning and development manager at at General Electric. He had interest in art and music and physics, so he had quite a diverse interest and background, and he was fascinated by how people thought. Who am I? Why am I the way that I am? Were the type of questions he was asking. So he created this model about whole brain thinking preferences. And each of these things, now some of you might have done DISC. DISC is kind of judgy, right? You're dominant or steadfast. You might notice in this one, this looks like the same because there's colours. Well, no, it's not the same. And also, it doesn't have judgmental names. So we say A, B, C, D, blue, green, red, yellow. We do not say particular words because each one has a cluster of things in that. So you could be A, very fact and very data, but actually hate numbers. So, there's differences in each of these. So the world doesn't think like you, and this is the core takeaway I want you to get out of today. If you are the most common profile in this database, 18.9% of the world thinks like you. So in a room with 100 people in it, maybe 20 of the people think like you. And that's on a broad level, not even on that detailed cluster level, right? This particular person, this common profile, is what we call a 1122. So that means they're high preferences in the blue and the green, and less in the red and the yellow, but they'll pay attention to those spaces. So they're very analytical, very practical, but a little bit relational and experimental as well, okay? So often they're in technical fields, and that therefore covers a lot of you guys potentially in the web space. But in 10 people, only one other person in that 10 people thinks like you. So if you've ever dealt with somebody and thought, oh my gosh, what are they thinking? Well, they're thinking something different to you because you're not thinking like them, but they're not thinking like you. But the scary thing is, I said that was the 20% thing. The least common profiles, which are these two here, are less than 0.01% of the database. So that means if you are very strong analytical and you actually avoid practical and people and emotion stuff and do a little bit of experimentation, you are 1 in 10,000 people. If you are on the right side there, you're probably a nurse or a teacher or something like that, so you're probably not here today. High in the practical, high in the people and emotion, but actually avoid the analytical, the numbers, and the experimentation. So the thing is here, 1 in 10,000 people. So if you don't think like others, I can tell you that point blank now, right? So you've got two choices here. You only deal with people that think like you, so you stick rigidly with your thinking, or you adapt and you learn how to think with your whole brain. So the choice is yours, okay? Now, I want to preface this by there is no right or wrong. So it doesn't matter what profile you are never right or wrong. It simply gives you benefits and consequences. So even being whole-brained, and we'll show you that in a sec, is not a good thing to be. There's a reason why, but it's also a brilliant thing to be. Your preferences can change over time and can change when you're under stress. And you do have access to all 4 parts of your brain, okay? It's just how much you use them and how much you want to avoid them. So the whole brain thinking is 3% of the database. 3 people in 100, so maybe 3 people in this room today, think whole brain naturally. So it's awesome because they consider all the angles. They can act as a translator between people that are not on the same page. But what might their problem be? They're constantly going around in circles. What, why, how, who? What, why, how, who? What, why, how, who? And they're in this loop. Can anyone relate to that, So we're going to loop. So the problem is they can find it very hard to make decisions. So there is no good or bad profile. I want to make that clear. Even the good one is not good. It has some consequences. So there is a video you can watch later, but the idea is you can increase productivity, problem solving, decision making, and your customer responsiveness by improving your whole brain thinking. So what do you think your thinking preferences might be? So you can do an HBDI profile, do the full 116 questions, and you can come up with an accurate answer. I did it 2 years apart, and I had 2-point difference. So it is very, very accurate. 58% of people, so about 2/3 of people, are 2 quadrants. That's their dominance is in 2 quadrants. And as I said, 3% are whole-brained. So are you analytical, financial, and logical? Are you practical and process? Are you relational, people, and emotion? Or you're experimental and entrepreneur? So which one of those are you? So I want you to look at these. Do you ask what questions? If I'm saying, right, you're running a project next week, what is the very first question you would ask? Now, some people would say, okay, who is going to be involved? Because they go straight to the red. Somebody might go, well, why are we doing this? What are we trying to get out of this? The future, the D. Some people are going to say, what is the deadline? When is the deadline? When is it due? That is a B. So the what questions are the blue, the how and when are the B, the who and the feel are the C, and the why and the what else are the D. So what do you think your profiles might be? So I want you to think of which 1 or 2 of those relate to you. Hands up who thinks they're blue, analytical. Quite a few people, about half the roomish, okay? Hands up if you think you're green, practical. Some people, very big hands up on that one. But some people know, and I'm like, no. C, who and feeling. Yeah? Not so many, about a 1/3-ish or less, quarter. And D, the why, what else? Yeah, that's me. So a lot of you are entrepreneurs, you work for yourself because you want to have the ideas and things. So that's quite common. So what you can do is you can guess your profile. So you're a 1 in an area that you have a very strong or strong preference in. Your medium preference that you still consider it, but it's not your go-to. And your green is, your low one is that number 3 is where you avoid or have low preference. So for me, for instance, I'm like, okay, I rated 2 in the red space, but I love teaching and training. I love helping people. I've volunteered since I was 6 years old, and I'm thinking, why is my red not stronger? But I'm not musical, I'm not spiritual, but also when I go to write an answer to a question, just a quick question on Facebook or something, I just give someone the answer because I help them. Yeah, quickly help them. But I then go, I didn't go, how are you? How's your day? I have to actually remember to add that. That is why I think in the red space to some extent, but it's not my go-to. Okay, and you're probably the same. So we're going to look at the cues to thinking experiences of others. Don't worry, you can get the slides later. But this here just talks about clusters. Okay, I just want to point out the fact that, like I said, we could be, say, 3 of those bubbles in the blue, but the other 2 we don't relate to at all, and that's okay. So the clusters may be different, which means that of that 20% that think like you, maybe really only 5 or 10% actually really think like you. And then it's stress. When you're under stress, it changes things. I had a client where the couple was both quite similar in the red space, but when under stress, the guy would go to 0 red. He didn't think about red at all. No people and emotion, so he shut down. And she was full red, off the charts red. So what would happen when they had a fight is she wants to talk it through and he wants to run away and hide. So for them, my suggestion was have 5 minutes to talk it through to give her some appeasement of her need, then have an hour break to give him an appeasement of his need. Okay, so that's what you've got to do, is work out ways to deal with things. So when we're looking at cues in others, and yourselves if you're not doing a profile, what things do you notice about body language? You'll notice for some people, they don't look you in the eye, whereas other people are full eye contact constantly. So people are different. People might have their, stand there always with their arms folded, or there might be a more relaxed stance. Now, the top one here, I want you to look at the top right. Could look distracted, may look elsewhere, they close their eyes, sketches, doodles, impatient and fidgety. Does anyone know what that also sounds very much like? ADHD. So I go, you know what? Is ADHD really ADHD, or is it just the entrepreneurial ideas, D space thinking? And it's just somebody in the green space, the opposite, said, you're different to me, I'm going to label you something. I'll just put that out there as a controversial statement. But they might also say certain things. So someone that's in the blue space might say, oh, we need to look at the bottom line. Someone in the green space might say, okay, the green might go, oh, I need to have the plan. What's the sequence of events? When's the deadline? The red one might be, oh, well, how are people going to feel? How are we going to involve them? What's the impact to people? And the D space might be, what else have we thought of? Is there more ideas? So you can get through their language where they sit. And I do this when I'm talking to people. I can go straight away. That person's asking me heaps of detail or heaps of planning. I know they're their left brain stuff. So I know to give them in response things that include that. So observing people, when they talk about numbers a lot, they like to have all the facts and they want proof. They're in that analytical space. When they're in the green, they set up a plan, they set deadlines, etc. They're in the green. The red, involve everybody. Consider morale and stuff like that in the red. And the yellow is that looking for what else, the bigger picture, and can be very into variety and things like that. So the thing is, we can also use these. These are what we call think-abouts. So you basically just get a piece of paper with a blue, green, red and yellow square, and you make sure when you're looking at a project or decision, have I got something in each box? And that's how we then can apply this to whole brain thinking. So when we're communicating, we've got to remember how we think affects how we communicate. So if I think from the blue and yellow spaces, then there's going to be certain things I'm going to do in my communication. So we think and we hear and we speak from our most preferred quadrants. So if I think from a very analytical proof place, I'm going to talk from that place. I'm going to give you proof points. I'm going to give you data. I'm going to give you information. So we've got to remember that that's not what everybody wants, and we've got to be careful with that. It was an example actually where a lady took out of a talk a slide about heaps of detail because she thought, I don't want to see that in there because I don't like that. And at the last minute she left it in because she knew we were doing this whole brain thing. And she said at that particular meeting there was a guy that was sitting back, not paying attention. And then she put up the slide about all the data. And he was like glued to it. And she realised, oh my God, if I'd taken that slide out, I wouldn't have had his attention. So you've got to start thinking it's not just about what you like and what you want, do what other people need as well. So communication is easier when people think like you and harder when they don't. Like, let's face it. But the best communication does tend to be whole-brained. So we can stop and make sure we've included it. And if you know the power, you can influence people. So what we want to do is, I said we want to do that think about. So we want to go, have I considered the data and the facts? Have I, when I'm communicating with people, have I given them enough data? Have I given them that green stuff, the step-by-step, the consequences, the contingency plan? Have I given them the red? How are we going to check in on them? How are we going to get their feedback? How are we going to communicate this message to others? And on the yellow, have we explored the options? We're not just jumping into it. Are we looking at the long-term view? So we've got to make sure if we're speaking to an individual, then we can maybe pick an area or two we really focus on. But we want to make sure if we're speaking to everybody through our websites and things, that we cover all 4 boxes. Otherwise, we're going to lose people. Unless we know our avatar really well and we know absolutely they're not in the green space. Okay, then we won't worry about that one too much. But otherwise, we do. We can also do the same with problem solving. For me, I always did brainstorming at events because I'm in the yellow space. And I would be amazed and I'd go around and going, why is this table literally not written one word down? And this table's got 2 pages of stuff. And it's because that table were all people that were left-brained and do not think of ideas. And I was like, what? Because I never realised that brainstorming is a thing that certain people do and certain others don't. And it's not bad or good. You just need to start understanding that. So I was like, so now I've adjusted the way I run those sessions to make sure that people know what I want them to do. So I give them more delivery of sequence and things so that they can actually get to brainstorming, but just in a different guise. So the sales and service impacts. How does it impact you? Here's an example of making a sale. I went to the boss of where I was at the time that I contracted to and said to him, I'd like to have a table at an event. And I said to him, we've had heaps of clients at this from this group, and he knew we did because he used to let me network with them. And I'd say, cool, we've had heaps and heaps of clients. And then he would go, and then I said, and you've got another program that you can sell. So what these were red and yellow. The red was about supporting the people, and the yellow was about the future. Unfortunately, the gentleman I was speaking to is all blue and green. He has 0 red and 0 yellow. I'm like, I've gone to him with completely the wrong message. So the answer from him was no. Flat out no, straight away no. So I went, okay, let's rephrase this in a blue-green methodology. So what I did is instead of heaps of clients, we've had 500 clients times a 2-hour minimum times what I estimated he got per client. I said, that much hole in the balance sheet? Would you like that? And how easy it's going to be to have this event. Like, it's not going to be any challenge for you. There's no issue. I'm going to be there. This person will be there. Literally, you don't have to do anything. So I gave him all blue and green. He gave a yes in, and he was the first person to book the next year. So the trouble is, most of us hear no, and we go, no, okay. But the thing is, in that situation, it was really easy yes. I just hadn't communicated in the way he likes to hear it. So how many times are you doing that with your clients? The good news is, now a lot of these slides here, don't worry, you're not going to see them up here. That's okay, just get the slides later. But you can get ChatGPT to help you. So when you're getting ChatGPT to help, I do a thing called priming. Tell it about your business, tell it about you. Then you give it a framework. This here is the framework that we're going to give it. And in this case, to be honest, it knows enough about HBDI, you probably don't even need to give it the framework, but I basically did. So I say, here's a framework that I'd like you to follow. Then what I said as my first prompt is, great. Firstly, I want you to consider how someone with a strong dominance in one thinking quadrant would like to be communicated with in their preferred communication style. Cover each of them separately. And what it did was basically spit out how I should interact with these people. So if they're blue, just the facts kind of people, then I need to be clear, concise, and direct. No facts, no fluffy stuff around the edges, just get to the point. Use stats, use evidence, no emotive language, and respect their time. But the problem you've got to remember here is we can have people that are on the diagonal opposites. So the blue, the opposite to that, is the red, the C. What do they want? They want to show me you care about me. Give them the big warm hug. So they want to start with personal connection. That's why it's important. Even if you're that blue-green space, that you go into your emails and add at this top, how are you doing? That stuff is super important to someone that's red. They will not connect with you well if you just get to the point. Okay, so you've got to start adapting. And the thing is, you remember, you're in an influential position if you know this stuff and they don't. Like I said to that example before, I got a yes from a no simply by me understanding, I know how to tap into his brain, which is very smart. So these guys don't want the technical information. They don't want it. They want more personal stuff. They want to know that you care about them, that you're going to check in with them. What about to sell your web services? Again, we can go to chat and just go, hey, as a web designer, I'd love some specific examples of how to approach web design clients who need websites for their small business in the sales process and web proposal phase to address their thinking preferences, to make a sale more likely. How am I going to pitch it? And again, here's an output from the green people that need structure. We can lay out the entire project timeline, detail the content and features on each page, share the checklists in a sample project plan, highlight support or maintenance options they're going to get. So the example pitch it even says is, Here's our project roadmap showing each stage from planning to launch. We'll keep you updated at each milestone so the process stays clear and on schedule. After launch, we offer ongoing support, so you always have the help you'll need. So it literally tells you how to have this communication. So this is really useful. So what you can start doing is applying this stuff and trying it out yourselves. What about how could we pitch to capture whole brain thinking? So when we don't know what style they are, we want to make sure we capture everybody. Then what we're looking for is an answer that has all of the points, right? And again, don't worry if you can't see that. The idea is just to show you that it's meant to be all spaced out. If you put that prompt into ChatGPT, you're going to get something similar. But it'll say things like, our goal is to create a site that looks great but performs well with a focus on SEO and user experience. You'll see measurable improvements in visibility and engagement. So it's giving them data and fact. Then it talks about the step-by-step plan. Then it talks about we're supporting your vision to make sure that your passion and dedication come through. And then it follows up with that this might evolve. Okay, so it might be a powerful tool to inspire and engage your audience. So it's giving all of those people something they need. So this is really useful. What about how we want to work with our web design clients? So it's not actually selling, this is actually the maintenance side, the ongoing thing. Let them know how you're going to work with them. Again, the blue, we're going to get you key questions to identify your goals and the lead generation things. So we're getting the number, the data. Then it's the green, the checklist, the outlines, every step we're going to do during the process. Then the red, I'd love to hear your story and really capture that passion. And then the brainstorming ideas and things. So what we want to do is make sure we're covering everybody off, okay? Otherwise, if we just stick to what we know, we're going to go to whichever of those stick out for us. So we might only give them the blue, or might only give them the green. But if they need the other areas, we've lost them. So when we're applying whole brain thinking more broadly, where we're going to use it. We're going to use it on things like our website, our sales proposals, our emails, speaking to a group, or general marketing. We make sure we cover something for everybody. So an example of writing an email to all, and again, this is just to show you the colours. Don't worry about what the email says at all. It's purely about the colours. So what you can do is literally go through an email and go, is that a blue thing, a green thing, a red thing, or a yellow thing? Have I got a mixture of things in my email? Because if I don't, then I haven't gone whole-brained. I haven't captured something for everybody. Like in the example with the guy that turned on once he saw the big slide with all the data on it, you want the person to go, ooh, that captured me, that got my attention. And obviously if we know what preference they have, then we focus on that more so. So if we know the person's blue, then we'll put more blue in and we'll open kind of with blue very near the top. Okay, so this is where we want to mix things up. The other thing you can get ChatGPT to do, obviously, is check your emails. So you've got two options when you're checking emails. One is feedback and one is rewriting. My suggestion is you don't get it to rewrite your emails, although a lot of techie people especially do that. They chuck them in to make them feel more personal and stuff. But what you're better off to do is actually ask for feedback, because then you can see where you're going wrong, where you're not doing things the right way, okay? So you say, I'm about to send this email. Could you provide feedback on how it could be better positioned to cover all quadrants of whole brain thinking? And while we're at it, can you please ensure the email has a friendly, service-driven focus? So what you're going to do is put that in, put your email in, and it will spit out some feedback on it. Or like I said, you can do the rewrite. My preference is not to do that. Like I said, if you know the person, if you've had a lot of meetings with the person and you're about to give them your sales proposal, if you know they're very blue or you know they're very red, then talk to their quadrants. If you don't know, then always include whole brain thinking. Cover all the things. So from a selling perspective, you need to provide proof to an analytical person. If you're B, you need to produce a plan. If you're C, you need to do people. And if you're D, you need to do possibilities. If we're doing communication preferences, there's a whole bunch of ways we can communicate differently for each person. And again, you can check that up later. So incorporating across your whole business, I can even go to ChatGPT and say, well, what other suggestions do you have? And it's brought up things about website and marketing materials, proposal documents, educational content, developing a team training, adopting a whole brain design workflow process. You can adapt this to anything you guys do. You can also, if you're doing web design for clients, you can encourage them and let them know, hey, have you heard about this whole brain thinking stuff? We really think you should put this into your website. And so you encourage them to do it. So to create a website that resonates with visitors, think about blending your different content types. Include data and facts that show your credibility, a clear structure and organised pages, personal stories and client testimonials, and a vision for the future. This will ensure your content is relatable, credible, and inspiring. So you're telling the client, like giving them help, because they go, I don't know what I need to provide. We'll give them some guidance on how to help them. Just before I give a final comment here, I just want to say one other example, just to illustrate the point of when we're thinking differently and how stupidly frustrating it is for no purpose. I was at a four-wheel drive event, and the guy that was running the event goes to another guy who happened to be an auditor, so very blue-green, very detailed and very sequential. This guy, who's very high level, goes to this guy. Can you please set up this event? Here's the 4 mats, go over there. So what did this poor guy do? Huh? What? So this guy, here's the 4 mats, go over there, set up the event. Just louder this time. This guy, what? And I'm just standing there going, oh my God, one of you needs to move. One of you needs to change. So either this guy, instead of going what, needs to go, I don't understand what you want me to do. Can you please explain what you want me to do? Or this guy could have recognised he has no idea what I'm talking about. He does speak English. Therefore, instead of going, oh, here's the mats. Oh, can you go over there and set up the mats? Put them, 50 metres apart, blah, 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 in a square. Like, give him some direction. But I was standing there watching them having this ridiculous standoff for no reason. And that is whole brain thinking when it's not whole brain thinking. So we've just got to start working out that we can do this. So a final comment from ChatGPT. By weaving whole brain thinking into every touch point, from marketing to client comms and team processes, you create a business culture that resonates with all your clients, improves client satisfaction, and fosters lasting relationships. So whole brain thinking and client communication equals better sales and service, which is what I said I was going to give you today. So we've talked about what is whole brain thinking, identifying your preferences, cues to identifying your thinking, or those of others, applying it in your communication and sales and service, and applying it to your business. If you want to, you can grab the slides and handout. I've got a QR code on the next page to help you do that, where I give you all the prompts as little, you can literally cut and paste in ChatGPT, make your life easy. And if you want to do a profile with me, I will give attendees $80 off. So just reach out to me and you can do that. So here's the link to grab the slides and grab the prompts. Please do that. And thank you so much for coming along.
This is going to take a second to turn on. Do we have any questions?
Look back. And by the way, my slide pack versus the WordCamp one has a few other ways of interacting with people and stuff, so there is some extra information you'll get that's not in the WordCamp version.
Thank you so much. That was awesome, very insightful. I was just wondering if, a lot of us being designers or web developers, if say we're in the yellow quadrant and we're dealing with clients that are more sort of the blue-green, is there any way that we can kind of use that to our advantage rather than matching them in the blue-green? Can we kind of join our two colours, so that we have the ideas and the emotion and the high-level thinking and match their analytical side? How does that work?
100%. So when you have staff, for instance, as well, it can be the same thing. So for instance, I'm blue-yellow. I had a staff member that was red-green, and it was a great compliment, but all you've got to do is learn to communicate with the person. So I'd go, okay, she needs more detail of steps, so I would give her more detail of steps, or I'd give her an instruction and say to her, fill in any gaps, right? When we're dealing with clients, we can do the same thing. As long as we communicate to the client and say, look, I'm going to be your ideas person, you need to give me this data and information over here. So we can use the client to work with us. But I'll give you a great example from some interior designers I deal with. So this interior designer is very yellow-red, so very ideas and fluffy stuff and emotional and everything. And she was dealing with accountants and auditors and engineers that were very blue-green. The only thing she did different was she added into her proposal and things and into her designs down to the millimetre numbers. She never used to do that. She'd just have a pretty picture. And when she added the down to the millimetre numbers, they were just like, oh my gosh, I want to work with you. You're so amazing. And literally, that's all she did was just add in the dimensions. So the thing is, you've got to remember, we can change and we can adapt, just like that example with the mat thing at the event. Like one of us has to move or both of us need to move. If you know this information, you be the person that moves, but it doesn't mean you lose your boundaries and it doesn't mean that you cave completely to their style. You just adapt it to make it work. So we just want to have it so the two people go, instead of being on two different pages, we want to bring it so that we're together. Don't you love it? There was one side to the other.
Round of applause for Lawrence for doing this.
Awesome presentation. I've done a lot of this stuff in my corporate sales role, but I still learned stuff today that I haven't seen before, so thank you for that. I guess I just want to make a comment about how well this can work. I had a recent proposal to do, and we sat with a board of directors, and I had the fortunate thing is my wife works at the company in the HR space, so we had all their profiles and how they think. So I actually flash that on the screen as to make the point that everyone thinks differently and that we should include that on the website. The CEO just basically said, well played, that was great, signed up. So it really works well if you can use it.
Thank you, and it is absolutely, and this is why it's something I'm so enthusiastic about, something I really love sharing, because this is game changing. Like, and if I didn't get the message across today, well, that's just because, half an hour's a little bit harder, but it seriously is game changing to your business, because if you can influence people in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way, it's awesome. But also, like, the example of the yes to the no that I got for the event. Like, that's what you guys can do. You may be getting no's at the moment. That could easily be yeses through a few tweaks in the way you communicate. And often it doesn't make a big difference. It really is quite small differences. But if you still don't like meeting people in person, you can still say, I still don't like meeting people in person. So the compromise might be the Zoom meeting or something, right? You can still withhold some boundaries, but, let people know what those boundaries are. One more if there's got time.
I'm just wondering if when, like in the initial conversations that you have with the client, or maybe like an initial inquiry form, like I have quite a detailed sort of inquiry form to spot any red flags or, things like that. Are there particular questions that we could ask that would help us try to determine where this particular client sits?
By asking them about their understanding of the project and the scope that they want from you, that would give you some indication. So if they start talking to you about, it needs to include blah, 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 then you go, they're green. They want all the detail, that straight away. And if you don't want to be super detailed person, you might go, red flag, I don't want to work with them. Or you might go, okay, I need to make sure I'm giving them a very clear plan. So by just getting any signal from them, so it could just be asking that broad question, because like I said, if you give someone a project to do, you will literally all go something. And it's funny, because when I deal with somebody that's in a corporate space, in an IT space, the first thing they will ask is, when is it due? Whereas I don't know any entrepreneurs, really, that would ask, when is it due? The first question is going to be, okay, why are we doing this? What are we trying to get out of this? What is the outcome? We're looking at the future of what that's going to deliver, but this guy's all just like, okay, well, how's this going to fit my time frame? So we all come from a different perspective. So any question you ask, honestly, is going to have those little cues. And also, like I said, if you're doing a discovery call that's online, the body language cues as well. Because like I said, a blue-green person will tend to not look at you in the face, whereas a red person is going to look you in the face. So you can start picking up cues really quickly. Thank you. One more time.
Are there any other questions? I'll come to this mic on. If there are no other questions for now, then let's give another big round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sure you